Joining me on the broadcast again is longtime friend and fellow activist Matt Dillahunty. You have seen him on The Line. You see him on his own Atheist Debates channel. You have seen him on the debate stage. And he joins me here. Hey, brother, how you doing?
I'm living. It's a mixed bag. It's a weird world I find myself in. How are you?
You been gaming lately? I'm not a gamer, but I've been playing occasionally. I'll fire up Phasmophobia, but I know you're a gamer. What are your games? What have you been into?
Oddly enough, I've gone back after 20 years away to playing EverQuest. It's a massively multiplayer online game that I played. I stopped playing 20 years ago, but they have new servers that it's a little easier. It's a little lighter. It's not as complicated and time consuming as it once was, although it has occupied a lot of my time over the last few months. But yeah, so I'm back to doing
EverQuest
that.
Like Skyrim and all those, or no?
I suppose it's like Skyrim in the sense that it's in a fantasy world, but the game style is not the same. You're basically, in groups and in many groups of like up to 60, 70 people, and you're taking down dragons with a lot of other players, not just like yourself.
Not to make the beginning of our conversation too niche, but you remember Myst, M-Y-S-T?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I actually loved Myst. And for a period of time, I used to write video game reviews for online magazines. And I got sent a copy of Riven, the sequel to Myst. And I wrote a review of that was not very flattering, that I now regret. But it was, I loved Myst. I didn't like Riven.
It was a big deal. You had your discs. I believe it came on several discs. Was it even disc at that time? And it was, there were no characters, no spoken words. It was almost like an elaborate, an elaborate version of The Room, where you have to go and solve various puzzles, and it opens up a path to the next puzzle, And it was revolutionary for its time. It's very 90s, but the reason I brought it up is I feel like I saw that somebody had either updated it or reinvented it and re-released it for 2025. I'm going to have to go look that up because I would play it again. I would take that nostalgia journey.
Yeah, there's some, there was some video stuff in there, and it's a puzzle game that was a big deal, but they included it free with like every video card ever sold for that year or two period. If you bought a video card, you got a copy of Myst, and it's like, that's a brilliant way to make sure your game is the number one selling game for a couple of years, even if you're not actually selling it.
You ever talk to No Illusions? That guy has video game actual hard physical consoles spanning 50 years. I mean, even well before in television. And a 2600, I think. He's got like the old connector with the things you had to screw onto the back of your television. He's hardcore, man.
Yeah, I got rid of that part. I have a couple of different like Raspberry Pi devices that emulate, 53 billion consoles and stuff like that. I got rid of all the boxes. I used to have a bunch of them, but I switched to being more of a PC gamer than a console gamer a long time ago. Yet I keep both and all of, like, I still have like my GameCubes in the closet, and my my old Xbox, my old PlayStation, those are all in the closet. I'm never going to plug them in again. I don't know why I keep them around. I guess maybe in my head there lives this, hey, we haven't played Guitar Hero 1 on the PlayStation 2 in 20 years. Let's go look at what your old save game records were, if the thing even boots.
Yeah, I mean, Metroid on SNES sounds like a ball. Let's go blow the dust off the old console. My problem is, and like the grandkid comes over, right? Mm-hmm. Braden wants to play Fortnite, and he's got his PlayStation controller with the joysticks for movement. So it's like all of his XYZ movement of the character and XYZ movement of the weapon. And I'm a PC guy. I need a mouse and a keyboard. I'm useless with the joystick. I'm terrible. I can't be the only one.
No. I won't. And so when I was seriously playing first person shooters, when I was playing Quake competitively, and ran the number one Counter-Strike team in the world. There were people who kept trying to come up with controllers. I remember that there was a controller called the Space Orb 360. And when we were at QuakeCon 97, Stevie Killcreek Case, who was dating Romero at the time, got a sponsorship from them. And it looks like you'd have a PlayStation controller or whatever, but had like a ball and orb on one side. And you used that as kind of like a virtual camera control. And so you were moving with one thing and you had a completely different thing there. It looked like a cool idea. In practice, it was terrible. And if you took the best console controller joystick player at a first-person shooter and put them head-to-head with somebody with a keyboard and mouse, it's not even close. It's playing with the console controllers like trying to text with mittens.
Oh, the gauntlet's been thrown now. You're going to get challenges. Oh, yeah? Dillahunty? Oh, yeah? You want to go? You want to bring it? Stevie Case was an object of many fantasies among the young adult hetero male gaming community. I remember there used to be a gaming magazine, and she was the hot model on the cover, and it was a big deal that she was, dating Romero, and that was a whole other thing. Anyway, actually, I just read, I can't remember the title. Forgive me for going off on this video game tangent, but what was the name of that book about the origins of id Studios, which made Wolfenstein 3D and Doom and Quake, and how they exploded into a multi-squillion-dollar company. And John Carmack and John Romero were part of that. It's a fascinating book. So I participated in the gaming world mostly from a distance, listening to the audiobook about the origin of id. Beyond all of that, you and I are talking about the approaching holidays. I don't want to be too Barbara Walters about these questions when it comes to how do you handle issues of family during the Thanksgiving and Christmas season. But I am curious, knowing your family's pretty fundy, are you going to go and hang out at the turkey table for Thanksgiving?
No, and I don't think there is going to be a turkey table. I haven't seen my mom since 2019. Basically, they moved a couple of times and COVID hit and we weren't traveling. And so I have seen my dad. My dad came down to visit me very briefly for like a weekend. And he used to work for the airline, so he can fly for free. My mom won't fly, and my mom doesn't really leave the house, and she doesn't really cook. So if there was going to be Thanksgiving, it would be at my brother's house. And we're not traveling up for that. As a matter of fact, he's coming down here this weekend to visit us, in part because we're not going up for Thanksgiving, not because we have any objection. And it's not anything to really deal with. We've kind of set all that stuff behind us to where, okay, we can sit around and we can have civil, pedestrian, boring conversations as long as we stay away from religion and politics and anything that matters. And we're able to do it. I don't find it fun, so I don't care to go.
Do you and your brother look alike? If I saw you guys sitting next to each other, would I be like, aha, yeah?
No. So I'm like right around 5'11", probably a little shorter now. As you get older, you shrink a bit. My brother's like 6'4", and had kind of reddish curly hair growing up. Of course, he's grayed out now too. He's 3 years younger than me, and he's genuinely the best person I know. But I don't think we look a lot alike.
When people call the line, or if you're talking, I don't know, do you do calls on atheist debates, or is that just straight talking head, counter apologetics type stuff?
It's mainly lectures and clips and things like that. The only live stuff, I might occasionally go live with like a game or a Q&A or something, but I don't really take calls yet. I've got 200,000 subscribers. I think I should probably start doing a variety of things there.
But you're doing the hang up on Wednesday nights and the line on Sundays very often. If somebody calls in and they give you that, the holidays are coming up, I'm an apostate, my family's freaked, we're estranged, how do you advise them? Or do you advise them?
Yeah, every family's different. And it's up to each person to figure out how comfortable they are being themselves around the people that they care about around the people they're related to, even if they don't care about them, if they're having how to deal with that conflict. And so I recommend that you spend some time thinking about it to say, okay, if this comes up, how would that make me feel? What would I think about it? And just pick a couple of generic topics. What happens if, religion comes up? What happens if Trump comes up? What happens if, a shutdown or healthcare? Or you don't necessarily have to take an inventory of every position you have, but figuring out what you're comfortable saying around the people you're going to be around is something that I think it's incredibly sad that we should have to do, or that we might ever be expected to do, or that might even be a good idea to do, to kind of filter yourself around the people you care about. But it seems necessary, because there are people who are more interested in keeping the peace than there are in not. And I think if you walk through those a little bit, you won't be caught as off guard. And the key thing is to have, hey, I'm not sure what I think about that, or I don't think I want to talk about that, or, that's not a subject I want to, have. I want to catch up with you. I want to hang out with, it's really easy to let people know that I'm here because I wanted to spend time with you, despite the fact that we're going to disagree on things, and that I valued our relationship enough that agreement isn't the foundational criteria.
There are a lot of people going into family time or debating skipping family time because you enabled Trump. You're dead to me, which I understand. I mean, I'm not saying that, you're dead to me is the appropriate response, but it's understandable. I mean, Trump 1.0, fine. He was going to be the big disruptor, and you bought into the business genius, and he was the outsider, and okay, fine. But with 2.0, I just feel like there's no excuse.
No. We're in exactly the same boat. I've said this, I don't know how many times. Arden and I talk about, so like, for example, when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I posted no sympathy. Now, clearly, I didn't mean that I don't have sympathy for anybody in the world. I didn't even mean that I don't have sympathy for his wife and kids. I already had sympathy for his kids by virtue of them being the children of someone who said if they were sexually assaulted and became pregnant, he would force them to carry it to term. I already had lots of problems with him. I didn't like the fact that I couldn't muster sympathy for Charlie Kirk. It was just a fact that I didn't relish his death. I didn't want him to die. Nobody deserves to die like that. It's not the world that I want to live in. But it's just a fact that I have zero sympathy for Charlie Kirk. And when it comes to like Trump, I'm with you in that, I was pretty pissed the first time around. But now I'm not even shocked, and I can't even pretend to know or understand what the reason is, or even care that much. When the world makes me hate who the world is turning me into, and yet it seems like the right thing to do. How do you not stand up against injustice? And I'm baffled at what's going on. And so, yeah, I don't care to spend any time with anyone who is outspokenly pro MAGA at this point. I don't care if you're my mother, my best friend of 20 years or whatever else. I've clearly made some kind of mistake in evaluating what kind of conversations I can have with somebody if we're that different on that subject. It drives me bonkers, because I think a lot of it is nostalgia and fear. And that is that we live in the most rapidly changing world ever. There's more access to more information. There is more access to diversity of opinion. There is more information, but also confusion. And I don't know that it's as easy as saying, oh, it's racism, as much as it is, oh, the world's changing too quickly for some people, and too far from what they recognized as this is what the world is. And so there's this massive backlash where they want to take us back to the 50s or the 40s or whatever they imagine the world like that to have been. And so they don't even think about the consequences. It's just, oh, there's too much queer stuff. There's too much trans stuff. There's too much of this. And they're coming for my jobs. And they're coming for my money. And all these people are getting away with it. Nobody wants to work. And I remember back in my day, and I think it's mostly nostalgia for something that never really existed, a fictional construct in their head that they're afraid of losing that they never had in the first place.
Someone once said, and there may be some truth to this, that the white majority is terrified of growing diversity because they know how minorities have been treated in this country. Maybe they're projecting a little bit. Your take on that?
Yeah, no, I think fundamentally people are like, oh, like, for example, consider slavery. When you look at, like, for example, the Bible endorses slavery very clearly. I don't even understand how people can argue against this. It specifically tells you who to enslave, how to enslave them, how you treat your Jewish slaves different from your Gentile slaves, et cetera. And I've had different apologists give me different excuses for why it is this way. Well, they didn't know any better back then. Well, first of all, I thought this was supposed to be from God, and I would think God should know better. But if you ever wanted to know if slavery was wrong, all you had to do was ask a slave. And the fact that didn't occur to people already shows that there is a degree of bigotry there where they're not on equal footing. Right? You know, oh, your opinion of whether or not it's right to enslave you isn't as powerful as my opinion that yes, it is. And so they know the difference in treatment. And when you've been in a privileged position for a long time, generations, all of a sudden, even equality or mere slight privilege feels like an infraction. It feels like somebody's taking something away from you because, it's a zero-sum game. And if you take part of my happiness, then I'm going to not be as happy. Why did I have to take any of your happiness in the first place? I didn't need your happiness to make me happy. But when you are happy, if I care about you, that adds to my happiness. And it's not a zero sum. We both just keep getting happier. And I think, I don't want to make it sound like it's all easy and bliss. But yeah, I think that the fear is, hang on, if I'm in a position of power, I know that I'm a good person and I will use that power responsibly. But I don't know that that's true for other people. And right now, the people who are in power are the ones who are demonstrating exactly who shouldn't have power and why they shouldn't.
One of the examples recently is the big argument about SNAP benefits, previously, and I think in a pejorative way called welfare, which, it's assistance to those in need. And the narrative coming out of, MAGA country is crack whores and welfare queens, if you'll forgive me for being crass, but this is how they're framing it. They are dehumanizing. They're all a bunch of parasites. They're draining us. They're lazy. They're all these things. And of course, then I had to go and I was like, well, I wonder what the statistics are. And the vast majority of people who receive SNAP benefits have jobs, at least one. Many are trapped in service jobs that are on the bubble. They could be hired or fired at any moment. They don't pay very well. Many are veterans. Many are victims of abuse or who have been put in disadvantaged situations for any host of reasons. And so, the dehumanization of those who are in need, to me, it just comes back to cruelty. And I think to myself, Elon Musk is apparently now worth $1 trillion. This guy has the opportunity to commit unbelievable resources to help fixing the world's problems. And people are bitching about assistance to people who are hungry. And my sympathy centers dry up. I just can't muster any,
Yeah, my understanding of the $1 trillion thing with Elon isn't that he's now worth $1 trillion or that he's being paid $1 trillion. As a matter of fact, I think he's mad about the deal. And that is that basically Tesla said, we'll agree to pay you $1 trillion over this many years if in fact you meet these goals. And Elon doesn't want to meet goals. He wants to be, the head guy in charge and just soak up as much money as he can. But it's funny that on the SNAP benefits, like I just went back and checked October 2nd. I grabbed that chart. You won't be able to see it at all, and saved it to my phone. I do this a lot. It's one of the best uses of memes, is that I keep a bucket of them on the phone that are specifically data related to the facts of reality that you're going to end up discussing in arguments. And so what this chart lists is for all of these social services. So Social Security, SSI, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, Marketplace Insurance, Marketplace Subsidies, SNAP, TANF, Section 8 housing, federal student aid, Head Start, public K through 12 education. It lists who gets those benefits, and it is citizens and green card individuals only. And then refugees have access to a handful of those. Nobody in DACA. So for example, for SNAP, no refugees, no asylees, no DACA, no non-tourist visas, no asylum applicants, and no unauthorized immigrants. None of them have any access to SNAP. And it also goes through and lists what the responsibilities are, because in those different categories of people, you either have to pay taxes, you're eligible to work, you're eligible to, to vote or not in different things. So they are all required to pay taxes. Everybody, the DACA folks, the non-tourist visa folks, the asylum applicants, the unauthorized immigrants, they are all legally required to pay taxes. And none of those are eligible at all for SNAP benefits. And yet the Republicans are sitting there claiming the Democrats were intentionally shutting the government down so that they could get SNAP benefits to undocumented immigrants. And that's just an absolute lie. It's not what they're advocating for. It's not what they have any legal authority to do. It is a complete fiction. And so when Mamdani wins and we're still in this shutdown, we finally got leverage and it's working. Now all of a sudden, I'm convinced Chuck Schumer arranged for 8 senators who would not be up for election until 2028 or who were retiring to bite the bullet and cave and restore the government to functioning order and basically give the Republicans what they want with nothing more than, oh, we promise we'll have a vote that you won't win, that won't be effective at all. And what's the worst you can do if they don't have those votes is say, oh, they didn't give us the vote they promised us. Well, congratulations, there, Charlie Brown. It's Lucy with the football, and you should have seen that before. I don't understand this caving now. It's like, oh, we're never going to give up. We're never going to give up. And then boom, right when you are at your most powerful and they are at their absolute weakest of this entire thing, it wasn't working. We'll give it to them.
I want to come back to that in just a second. Elon Musk, I struggled. And to be fair, Tesla cars are often called pieces of shit and whatnot, but that's actually, consumers love their Teslas. By the way, the Y, the S, and the 3 were not designed by Elon. He just came in, what's the bird that swoops in on somebody else's nest and kind of takes credit? The one thing he was involved with was one of the worst ideas in the history, in automotive history, which of course was the Cybertruck. But everything else, customer satisfaction scores are through the roof. People like the EV and they like the Tesla. So I think we have to be fair there. But Elon Musk himself is a human rights nightmare. I am convinced that if any other CEO had lost the money, lost the sales that he's lost for Tesla, and had been a public relations nightmare the way he has been, he would be gone. And I just want to go grab every member of the Tesla board and shake them and say, what the hell is wrong with you? And then, and I have a destination here. This was a while back, but I have to review it since we're talking Elon. Richard Dawkins is killing me. Beyond all the other shit that he's done, he posts that Elon is highly intelligent and diametrically opposed to Trump. He has the welfare of the world at heart. Now, I'm just like, on what planet are you talking about? So I made a short list. Elon, palling around with the cretinous Tucker Carlson, who in turn pals around with the cretinous and predatory Andrew Tate. Elon posted Atheism left an empty space. Secular religion took its place. He bought into the evil George Soros conspiracy theories, and he blasted him for buying 200 radio stations for propaganda reasons, apparently forgetting that he bought X for the same thing. He called climate change legislation communism. In November of 23, he claimed that Jews promoted white hatred. He had pledged in March of 2024 he wasn't going to donate to either presidential candidate. Oh, yeah, look how that worked out. He welcomed Alex Jones back to his platform. He spread anti-vax nonsense. He piled on with Joe Rogan against Dr. Peter Hotez. He's just great. I mean, that's just a drop in the drop of the bucket. And now what I see how well-funded he is, I think, is he unstoppable? Jesus, the guy controls 2/3 of the world's satellites. He has one of the world's biggest platforms. What do we do to stop that train?
He also, so I might post something to X or Twitter once every 2 or 3 months now. I might remember, hey, I'm getting ready to go live. I'll share out a link just in case anybody's still over there who might want to come over and watch the show. Other than that, I don't spend any time there anymore. I bet there's maybe 4 comments in the last 6 or 8 months from me anywhere on Twitter. And one of the things that he did is, as the chat GPT / predictive language model version of AI has become more popular, he decided he wanted one. So he created, well, he didn't create it. He doesn't create anything. He has his team do it, or he buys up the stuff that somebody else has done. So they create Grok. And so Grok is this AI chat assistant on X that you can ask questions. And then Grok started giving answers which were ostensibly correct, but weren't to Elon's liking. So what did he do? He had them rewrite it to make sure that it only answered in specific ways. So now, instead of having an accurate model, or at least a predictive language model based on a broad set of views, now you have one where there's no clear demonstration of accuracy, and the views that it's based on are much more narrow. So it is absolutely a propaganda machine. And despite that, it has still bucked up back against him a couple times. This is how divorced from reality some of these people are. I just don't understand it. I mean, I can speculate about, nostalgia or racism or fear, but I think a good chunk of it is, while it's true that some people may not know what sources to trust and to what extent to trust them, I think other people are just using that as an excuse to be like, it reminds me early on when I was debating Christian apologists, and they would say something like, well, you can't trust science. Science keeps changing what it says. And we had to explain to them, that's true. That's the strength of it. As we learn more and find out more, science refines itself so that we are ever narrowing in on a more accurate understanding. We are not stuck. It is not dogma. We are there. It is a strength of science that it can change, and it changes for good reasons to ensure that it almost certainly changes towards a more accurate result. Musk's Grok is doing the opposite of that. And the people out there are using that as an excuse. There's, are you listening to Fox? Or are you listening to MSNBC? Or are you listening to CNN? You're only going with your news source. And then we get something like Ground News that will show you from a variety, and you can compare. I use it all the time. It's a great, great tool. And there's several other tools like it. I don't know if they're a sponsor, but if you're confused about who to trust, that's one thing. But if you're just cynical and saying, I'm not going to bother trusting anybody, now you're just lazy. Now you don't even want to know the truth when it's accessible. It is not like it's difficult. I get it when you start doom scrolling through your social media and you see memes or a claim or a headline. We're all busy. every single one of us has shared something probably without checking and got bit in the ass over it. Hey, you shared something that wasn't true. But if you're not willing to be corrected, to take it down, to do a better job next time, if you're not willing to do a better job next time, why'd you take it down in the first place? And you don't really care about truth. You just want to spread information because the community there isn't about you or what you think. It's just not missing out.
So back to the Democrats and the folding on the government shutdown, etc. Interesting that despite the fact that Trump is seeing record unpopularity numbers, I'm sure you saw the video of him being booed and jeered and middle fingered at the Washington game or whatever. I mean, he's crashing and burning, even among some who voted for him. Finally, not nearly enough, but support or admiration for the Democratic Party is not doing all that great either.
Nope.
And I suspect it is the perception, which is the reality, that these herded cats can't get their shit together.
Yeah.
What's your take on the Democratic Party? We shooting ourselves in this deal?
Well, we would be, except I'm not a Democrat. Now, I do tend to vote for the Democrat more often than not because it's closer to what my views are. I got into an argument briefly. There's this Canadian rapper that's an alt-right rapper named, I think, Tom McDonald or something like that. And he was getting ready to release this song called Woke World or whatever. And I rolled my eyes right off the bat because none of them seem to know what woke is. None of them seem to know what anything is. Communism bad, socialism bad, woke bad. It's not even the bumper stickers and the McNuggets now at this point. It's just fragments of thought being regurgitated as if they matter. And so this person was in our chat. Now, in game, we tend to keep politics and religion and stuff like out of it because you're in a group with a whole bunch of people and you don't get to dictate to everybody else and you shouldn't be making it uncomfortable for everybody. So we just stay out of it, stay in the fantasy world and stay out of the real world. But he decided to, celebrate this coming track. And I let him know, hey, I'm going to go ahead and mute you. It's probably going to make things difficult, in the guild, but I need you to know, if you send me a message for something, you're not going to get a response because I'm muting you because I'm not going to sit here and hang out with people who are celebrating alt-right rap that is further marginalizing people and spreading misinformation and lies. And that person lost their shit and went and complained to the rest of the guild and said, oh, I cussed them out and I talked about alt-white and I didn't talk about alt-white anything. I mean, it was just a big misinformation thing. So in that situation, I just wanted to have my time away. I'm still grouping, with that individual in the game sense and other things like that. It's been wild trying to figure out how and where to draw lines. And I've forgotten your question and wandered astray. So my apologies.
Go ahead. Wander all you want. That's why people tune in. You never know where the journey's going to take you.
As Matt becomes more addled, you might get something more interesting. Or wait, why did I watch this?
No, why did I walk in this room is kind of the thing that comes out of my mouth all the time. You mentioned debate earlier. I checked this out as best I could, and it looked legitimate. Of course, you're familiar with one of America's pastors, Douglas Wilson, I'm sure. So I get this email message from apparently one of his agents or whatever. Douglas Wilson would like to debate a materialist atheist on his channel. So I finally responded and I said, all right, I'll do this. I'll engage. I'll do it if I can release the entire unedited broadcast also on my channel.
Yeah.
A day passed. The response was, hey, we've had a conflict, but thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And I was reminded of the old Cy Tim Bruggen, Kate, debate that you did. I rushed out there with some cameras and I released the entire unedited 2 hours before anybody else could go in and unfairly edit. Have you had experience with that? Somebody grabs something you said and quote mine or splice you up?
Well, I know that it happens. I don't tend to pay any attention to it. And so I know there are clips and videos out there. I mostly know about it because somebody else will reach out to me. I don't go looking for critiques or criticisms. And there's a bunch of, I mean, anybody can make a channel and put up whatever. I remember Paula Gia reached out to me because Cameron Bertuzzi had done something where he was kind of mocking me, but as kindly as possible, Cameron is not really the sharpest spoon in the drawer when it comes to kind of identifying logical fallacies and flawed arguments and things like that. And so Paul and I went through and kind of watched it, and he got my reactions to some of it. If it weren't for that, I don't think I would have even known about it. And yet I knew, I met Cameron. We've been in the same place multiple times for some of those modern day debates events. And so I know people do that. I've anticipated that people would do that since the very first episode of anything I ever did live. As long as I'm comfortable with what I'm saying, the only thing that I feel the need, well, this is a lie that I almost told. I was going to say the only thing I feel I need to respond to are things that are, actually factually incorrect and not just, oh, somebody's attacking me. But it's really easy to get me to respond to almost anything that is an attack on me if I feel it's inaccurate. That's something I'm working on to change. But I don't tend to see the dishonest clips. And with somebody like, Douglas Wilson, this is someone who rewrote or attempted to rewrite and completely whitewash slavery by saying that slavery was something that brought the races together. Well, yes, it did, Douglas, but not in the way that one side wanted.
God. Unbelievable.
He said slavery produced in the South a genuine affection between the races that we believe we can say has never existed in any nation before the war or since.
Is there a debate opponent where you walked off the stage or out of the Zoom call that you thought, I respect that person? Like they showed up in good faith. They did it right. We disagree, but I admire that person. You got anybody?
Yeah, actually, there's quite a few that some of them still got heated at some point, but we had good discussions and debates. I enjoyed debating Blake Junta. I enjoyed debating John Ferrer. There's a few others. I actually enjoyed the discussion with Jordan Peterson, even though it wasn't a debate and it was kind of it was difficult, and he turned out to be incredibly dishonest, saying, oh yeah, I'd love to do this again, and then ran down in his dressing room and hid, never to be seen from again. And well, at least not by me. There are a handful that like if they reached out and they said, hey, you want to do this another debate, I'd be like, yeah, because even though we disagree, we can disagree. Well, it's not like somebody's just lying about the other person. Whether or not they're being honest about what they think or whether or not they're presenting good arguments, those are all things. That's the whole point of doing a debate. We can't both be right if we disagree. So yeah, there's been a handful of people like that. Now, some of them, like Blake was for a while my absolute favorite debate opponent. We had really good discussions. He then went on to say some things that were problematic about queer folks and queer rights and stuff like that. And similarly, I thought like a year and a half ago for Easter, I went to Florida and debated Than Christopoulos. And we got along. I thought, like, genuinely, I thought that Than and we talked about working together. We talked about doing collabs on things. I figured of all the people that I debated, Than was the one where I was most likely to have a a moderately close possible friend that we disagreed on religion and could have those discussions and produce content. And then he got hooked up with Michael Jones and some other debate bros, and I don't know, just turned into an asshat. So,
What are these debates themed? They usually have a title, at least, something to sell it on. Is God real?
yeah.
Did the resurrection happen? The debates you participate in, do they start with some sort of a frame?
Yeah, if it's a proper, like, not a call-in show thing, but a structured debate, then what ends up happening is we say, okay, what topic are we going to debate? How are we going to define those terms? And what is the format or structure? How many are we going to have? Openings, rebuttals? Are we going to have, brief openings and then just discussion time? And I have my favorite or preferred formats that get closer to conversational. I want equal time to present ideas, and I like having a moderator make sure that we're treating each other fairly in discussion. But mainly, I prefer like the discussion. And so, what you'll end up doing is you'll say, "Okay, let's debate this, and here's the structure, and we'll do it on this date, and blah blah blah." And I like all of that. But what people don't realize is because they're used to also seeing some absolutely awful debate formats and structures, and it's now debate as theater, and it's jousting, and let me put you with 20 of these, and it's going to just be, Charlie Kirk wasn't a debater. Charlie Kirk was a fraud. Charlie Kirk debated on easy mode. You put anybody who barely knows or a topic at a university, with a crowd. They're taking on people who are new to this, but who don't have the power of the mic, who he can shut down. If you take a look at what was happening, like right before he got shot, he was not giving real answers. He was being glib and going for applause lines. Charlie Kirk was basically doing the Hello Cleveland of debate. It's not like he was an NBA star, punching down to children. He was a college dropout as well. But it's debating is a skill, and it's a bit of theater. And especially when you hold all the cards, the things that happen on the call-in shows, people complain to me all the time. Why would I call into your call-in show? I'm not going to get treated fairly. You're going to put me on hold, and then you're going to hang up and you're going to mock me. Actually, that only happens if you're not engaging honestly. The people who are capable of having a respectful conversation back and forth, that never happens. It just becomes closer to an actual debate. And so people get used to seeing that format. And then I walked out of two different debates. One, because this person was a flat earther who had promised not to bring up that subject. And the other one was Andrew Wilson, who had agreed to debate topic A and then showed up and tried to debate topic B while also mocking trans people ending their own lives. And it's your job. Let's say you fix PCs and you get called over to somebody's house and they want to contract you to fix their personal computer. And you show up and they say, I know we wanted you to come over and fix my PC, but I'm willing to set that aside and still pay you if instead you'll fix my dishwasher. Now, you may be an expert at dishwasher repair, but that's not what you agreed to, and that's not what you prepped for. And so you can stay and do it if you want to, but it's also valid. It's a complete waste of my time to say, hey, let's debate on which is better for the world, secular humanism or a biblical worldview, and then say, oh, well, I'll set all that aside if you'll just tell me how a man can get pregnant. I mean, this is the clickbait dishonesty that in that case, I didn't want to dignify. So I walked out. And, anybody, oh, you ran, you couldn't answer his questions. Well, you can think that all you want, but I did answer his questions afterwards and before and countless other times. And if he or anybody else had wanted a debate on that topic, I would have done it. This was about lying and mocking people. I just did a video not long ago asking if debate is dead and whether or not me and some others in working with the shock formats like modern day debates, if we helped kill it off.
I co-hosted with Aaron Adair on Skep Talk on the Line Network recently. One of the callers dialed in. He started with, "I'll admit I don't really know much about the Bible or my Christian faith, but I wanted to call and tell you why I think it's true." And at the beginning of the call, I was like, well, hang on just a second. You're telling me that you haven't educated yourself about the religion and you're not well prepared to engage in an apologetics discussion to prove your faith, but you've called to prove your faith. And he's like, yeah. I think that call went on for like 15 minutes. How do you handle something like that? You know, somebody dials in, they're like, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Let's talk. Do you engage?
I had a call almost exactly like this on Sunday. And I've had it many times before. And in this case, all I did was ask the questions, because if you're saying, hey, I think this is true, but I don't think there's any way to test it. And I don't just, and in this case, it wasn't just, I don't think this is testable or falsifiable. They're saying it will never be testable. And I'm like, so wait a minute. You're saying it's not testable or falsifiable, and you know that it's never going to be testable or falsifiable. I don't even know how you reach that conclusion, because in principle, I'm not necessarily convinced that the proposition is in principle untestable. But you're comfortable saying you believe it's true while acknowledging you have absolutely no method, mechanism, or information to show that it's true. And the guy was like, yeah. You can watch me. It's there. It's going to make for great clips, because we got this guy to admit, yes, I'm aware that my position is irrational. Okay, fine. I understand how that might be appealing, but if you believed that you were going to inherit $1 billion next year, and you found out today that not only do you have no reason to think that that's actually true, but possibly some good reason to think it's false, would you keep spending money in anticipation of the $1 billion you think you're getting? And would you say it's rational for you to keep acting as if you're going to be getting $1 billion in a year when you have no reason to think so? I mean, and by the way, the odds of inheriting $1 billion next year are seemingly, and I'm going to use the word infinitely inappropriately, infinitely more likely than that there's a God that is untestable and unfalsifiable that you can believe in rationally. It is wild to me how people have missed some of the basics, and it's like they carve out a special category for religion and what they call spirituality, which I still don't know what it is, and it has a completely different set of rules.
So one of my jobs as an interviewer is to ask some of the questions that I think viewers would want to hear. Maybe I'm a dick for asking it, but I saw on the line in the comments section what somebody had labeled the Matt Dillahunty rage chart or something, where they went call by call to gauge just how pissed off you had become at the caller. So I guess the question is, Matt, are you a dick? Whenever you go off on somebody, some people, it pushes them back and they're like, hey, wait, that was inappropriate. How would you respond? I'm just curious how you approach that stuff.
I haven't seen the chart yet. Don't get me wrong. From almost day one, it's been a parade of, oh, you're so angry and you're a dick. And I'm like, well, hang on. I've somehow for 20 years managed to have conversations with people I disagree with. And as long as they're honest interlocutors and we're able to just say, yep, I don't agree with that, and we can talk about it, where's the dick thing? Is it just a dick not to agree with them? But the problem is, it seems that a significant contingent of theists and people who believe in other potential supernatural things or woo things are not only not engaged in a rational outlook on the world, but are pretending that those of us who try to seek this rational outlook on the world have failed. And to me, that's the dick move, to arrogantly claim I'm right and you are wrong when the evidence and reason is on the side of the people that you're saying wrong, that you're saying they're wrong. Have I been a dick? You bet. Have I been condescending and arrogant and dismissive and frustrated? Yeah, you bet. But what's weird is some of it is, I mean, it's just naturally, I'm going to get hyped up. You called me a hothead. We had an argument once and you're like, Matt, you're a hothead. And I'm like, you're fucking right. I'm a hothead.
I mean, I didn't bring it up because I just think, well, it's an entertaining and it's a compelling question, but it's also like, it's a way for us to talk about it and flesh out exactly what drives different tactics and approaches when it comes to debate. So it wasn't an ambush, by a friend. Okay.
No.
Right.
I'm,
okay.
You're right. And the difference is, for me, there are times when I think that the correct thing to do, both from a moral standpoint and with the threat of the consequences in the world, is to be a hothead and to let that passion get to the point where people can see, because I get, you and I were talking about the MAGA folks earlier and how maybe during Trump 1, you could be like, yeah, we all get duped by something, but now you're without excuse. I'm in a position where I've done this for 20 years and it takes all of my effort to try to remember that the person I'm talking to isn't the same person that I've been talking to for 20 years. Because if I treat this person right off the bat as if that person and I have been having this conversation for 20 years, that would be a complete dick move. And so starting with, hey, what do you got? Let's go. Is my fuse shorter than it is? Actually, it's probably a little longer now. And what we noticed is that when I make an effort to say, okay, I'm going to make more judicious use of the hold button. Okay, I'm not going to cuss or say shut up or whatever else. Whatever the thing is that people are like, oh, you need to change this. When I make those changes, call volume goes down and the show performs worse. Now, that may not be a bad thing. That may actually be a good thing. Because the question is, if call volume goes down and the shows perform worse, are people watching because they just want to see me yell at somebody for being stupid? Because that's not why I want to do the show. That's not why I've been doing the show. I don't know that is just garbage entertainment. It's not really educating anybody. I don't mind exposing where irrationality is across the board. But it needs to still be, we get so many troll calls, people who are just genuinely dishonest. And then you add in the tech issues and it's going to irk me and I make mistakes frequently.
Here's a peek behind the curtain. I look at the switchboard, not really on my channel. I've been pretty, I hate to use the word blessed, but we don't do theist debate calls. It's rare that a religious person will dial in and, I'll engage for a while. But on the Line Network, there's a lot more of that theist, atheist back and forth. And I'll see on the switchboard, it tells you how many times this person has called into the show.
Yeah.
8 previous calls, 12 previous calls, 19 previous calls. And I can't escape the feeling that this person is just kind of masturbating. They get off on hearing themselves. Maybe they get off on being a troll. Maybe they're bored and they just like being on the show and in good faith they dial in. I mean, who knows what their motivations are. But if you see that, does it affect whether or not you go there? Hey, so-and-so's dialing in for the 15th time and he wants to talk about morality. What do you do with that?
Yeah, it's something that I really wish. On the one hand, we don't dox people. Like I've said before, I've got your phone number. There are people who call in and I've got their phone number. I don't give it to anybody and I don't call them back. But it's like, it's wild to me what some people are willing to do calling in from their actual telephone. We've got caller ID, but when I look down and I see, oh, this person's called 4 times and it shows when their last call was, like they called Wednesday or they called Tuesday, I'll know that, oh, this person called chewed gum yesterday and they're calling today. What does that tell me? I don't know. I don't tend to make that announcement to people. I will sometimes mention, hey, we've got so-and-so as a return caller, because if I look down and I see they called a week ago and the topic was pretty much the same as it is now, and this is the 17th call from them, they're going to automatically get a shorter fuse than me, than the other people who are on hold. Because on the one hand, if they're calling in to waste time, then they're being rude and disrespectful to me, to my co-host, to the audience, and to all the other people who are on hold who may be calling in with an honest conversation. On Sunday, 2 days ago, we didn't get a bunch of theistic callers, but we had mostly good conversations. There was 1 or 2, little problems. But if I see that somebody's called a bunch, I'm starting to wonder if maybe I should let the audience know, because let's be honest, I've done this for 20 years. And not all the time, but most of the time, I know exactly where that caller is probably going before the overwhelming majority of people listening know, only because I've heard it so much, and you can tell by the way they phrase this or what they say, that what they do ask, what they don't ask, the way they don't answer the question, the way it's clear that they didn't listen to the question or were waiting for their turn to speak, maybe at most. And after doing it this long, it's just difficult to not catch on to all of that. And so the biggest problem I have is wanting to rush right to the end. Okay, you said this. Here's the fallacy in your argument. Here's what's wrong with it. Here's what you need to study. Here's how you don't understand epistemology. Next caller. Like I fixed them. You can't do that. And so there's this, it's a difficult, I'm tired. I'm exhausted when the shows are over, because I'm doing a lot of thinking. I'm doing a lot of navigating. I'm doing a lot of multitasking. I've stopped paying as much attention to chat when I'm on the show as I used to. But I'm paying attention to all 5-6 lines and who's on there and who we're going to. I'm communicating with the production staff. I'm communicating with the co-host, and I'm taking notes on things and trying to make sure that the people who call in get their fair shot at representing their case. But my God, the inability of some people to answer a very basic yes or no question after having been asked 3 or 4 times. I don't care if somebody thinks I'm a dick at that point, because I think they're a dick for continually wasting my time.
You're still in Texas under the shadow of Greg Abbott.
Yeah.
How you doing down there?
Probably trying to move.
We've been talking about it. Where do we go? What can we afford? What are the logistics of, like selling everything that we know, the house, and will we stay in the States and go to a more of a blue dot, or do we just get out of here and maybe return when, I don't even know when.
Yep.
Every day I think, it can't get that much worse. And now I just think there's no bottom. There's no bottom. And I think maybe a ticket out would be a ticket out. I mean, I'm not proud. I'm not married to the flag. I'm not one of those people that thinks we're better than everybody else. In fact, I think on many fronts we're a hell of a lot worse. There are greener pastures. We fantasize about it, Matt.
So mine and Arden's situation is a little different. First of all, the government is actively trying to label us domestic terrorists merely because she's trans and we support trans rights. That's a weird place to live in. I don't currently have a passport. So somebody asked me oh, why aren't you going to BajaCon? Well, I was invited to the first BajaCon, but I got ill and couldn't go. And now I don't have a passport. And I wasn't going to renew my passport because my partner can't get a passport because of their rules changes. And we also have a reptile business. We work with 19 or 20 species of snakes and about somewhere around 12 species of lizards. And so we keep and breed them. And that means we also keep and breed the various rodents and things that go along with that. And we love doing it. And we sell some of them off as pets. But the majority of them we sell off as pets. We are currently downsizing the collection because if we had to run right now, hundreds of animals would just die. Like if we had to run, hundreds of animals would just die. I'd find somebody to come in and help them and, redistribute them. And so, but we love doing this. And right now we are looking at Illinois and Minnesota as two places that have seemingly decent laws, decent governors, decent protections, both for the godless heathens, for the LGBTQ community, and for reptile keepers. There's an association called USARK, which is the United States Association of Reptile Keepers. And they are essentially the lobbyists that we pay, because what happens is people who are afraid and don't understand snakes are like, oh, I don't want, people shouldn't be allowed to have those as pets. And instead of creating a blacklist, which is you're allowed to have all of them except for this very narrow group, some of them are trying to create a whitelist where you're not allowed to have any exotic reptiles except for the ones we specifically list. And that is incredibly impractical. It's the same reason we don't list, like say, you have no freedoms in our nation except for the ones we list. Well, how do you list the freedom to give yourselves freedom? You can't even get started on a list like that. Instead, you should have every freedom, and then you limit freedoms for really good reasons. Similarly, you should be allowed to have, keep whatever reptiles you would like, but you limit them for good reasons. For example, this one, keeping it in captivity is cruel. This one, it's destructive to the habitat to potentially even get them in order to get domesticated varieties. There's the Florida thing with the Burmese pythons. They think they want to blame that on irresponsible pet owners, but it wasn't. It was a hurricane that took out a breeding facility, and that's why there's Burmese pythons all over the Everglades. It makes sense to hunt them down, to capture them, all those things. But we take all those things into account. And at the end of the day, we may not get any of that. And we may have to find a way for one or both of us to leave the country. And it really bugs me, not because I'm jingoistic, not because I'm an 8-year veteran of the United States military and it's embarrassing to me to watch Trump try to outlaw flag burning, but because I love what the Constitution should be when it's being followed, enforced, and protected. And it's not being any of those things. And so it's every day it's getting closer to, okay, what am I staying for?
It's the classic argument that we have with each other. Do we get out of Dodge or do we stay and fight? For now, it's stay and fight. Total tone change, but not a subject change. Reptiles. They're amazing. They're wonderful. I know that human beings, and I've written about human beings and our evolved tendency to flip out in many ways about arachnids and reptiles, and there are roots to that. But having overcome that, I've come to really see how amazing these snakes are, and they're lovely and they're beautiful. I know sometimes they can be dangerous. Do snakes have personalities, though? It's not like you've got a dog and a cat and a ferret. And come on, really? Really, Matt?
They're not quite the same. Most of them aren't looking for attention. They're not going to hug you. I mean, don't get me wrong, they hang on to you and stuff like that. For example, we have 2 green forest dragons, one of which will walk out nice and slow, sit on your shoulder, sit up on your head. It basically, birds are reptiles, and these green forest dragon lizards are basically like parrots. We have 2 of them. One of them just wants to run around all over the place nonstop, does not want to sit still. You've got to chase it around. It's nice and friendly. Some of the reptiles that we have definitely recognize the difference between me and Arden, and they will definitely recognize the difference between us and other people. But it's not like they're ever like, oh, come play with me. They'll put up with it, and they don't feel threatened or defensive. Others, like I have a couple of Kenyan zebra skinks that are, you will almost never see them unless you go lifting up a hide, because they want nothing to do with any of us. So they have personalities. They're just not, Arden has a new pet, effective yesterday. And we breed rats, mice, and ASFs. ASFs are African soft furs. They're a little rodent that, I kid you not, they're appropriately named. They're one of the softest things out there. And we tend to breed them primarily as food for the reptiles, but you can't help falling in love with some of them. And so yesterday, Monday is rodent day for us. It's where we clean out all the rat enclosures every single week. And Arden came across a little gray and white rat that does not have a tail. And so it looks a little more like a hamster. And we're out there working in the garage. And these they're sweet. They're incredibly clean. I mean, it's shocking. People think about, oh, filthy rats and the plague. No. They're stupid clean. They're probably one of the cleanest animals in the whole house, us included, at how fastidious they are, because they have nothing else to do. They sit around in those bins and they lick each other clean. And it's great. Well, I wish you guys could see her face, because we're out there working and I'm spraying out tubs and cleaning up. And she comes out and she goes, I love him. And so now she bought a bonding bag. It should be here tomorrow, I think.
This sounds vaguely naughty in another context, but go ahead.
It's like a little side purse that the rat can basically hang out in while you're doing your workday. I'm not doing it, but you know what? That thing's really cute and she likes it, so why not?
Connection comes in many forms. All right, well, like I see Aaron Ron, he's got this damn snake that he puts around his neck and he takes to every restaurant in freaking Texas, okay?
Yep.
Well, I've got a cat who is lovely and loves me and purrs and snuggles and all that stuff. But if he is at any point overstimulated, like if I pet him at the wrong spot or for too long, he could send me to the hospital, right? He's crazy. And so I'm thinking, you got a snake around your neck. At some point, don't they get pissed? And then you got fangs and you got strangulation and all these horror stories that I'm telling myself in my skull. You don't worry about that?
No, because first of all, none of the snakes that Aaron puts around his neck, or that I have, or that I put around my neck, none of them have fangs. None of them are venomous. Some of them do have some, teeth that could rip and tear. And, Aaron's been bit and had stitches before. I only have a couple of snakes that could seriously do, like, causing me some stitches harm. But you get used to reading their body language. And snakes it's pretty much a universal truth that snakes are never aggressive. They are it's either a food response or they're defensive. They're scared. And so if you're careful, and you get to where you can handle, like, for example, I have two snakes down in that right over there that are the exact same species. They are Woma, Aspidates ramsey. The male has only bit me once accidentally, and it was entirely my fault because I was trying to unwind him from around my wrist to put him back in, and I grabbed right near the head, and he just swiped his head. He wasn't even trying to bite me. He just swiped and just grazed my thumb. His girlfriend is nuts. His girlfriend, I'm working with her frequently to get her used to being handled, because when we first got her, you could not touch her or pick her up without her latching onto your thumb and staying there for 10 minutes. We tried alcohol like Fireball and things like that were supposed to get her let go. She would not let go. So I had to handle her with a glove for a while. I got a welding glove up there, and I'll pull her out with that. I don't hand her to anybody. I don't take her out. I don't take her out. We don't tend to take our snakes out in public too often anyway. But I have a third Woma of that species that is genuinely the friendliest snake in the collection. And I would hand it to a toddler, and the toddler could put the snake's head in its mouth. And I have no fear that this snake would react at all. It does not care. It reminds me a little bit of some really big cobras that I watch. I would never do this. I don't recommend it. Leave them alone. But I know guys who have pet cobras and who free handle them. And because snakes aren't aggressive, that cobra doesn't care. It's in charge. Nothing is a threat to it. And it's got no reason to bite anybody. And so while I would never handle a cobra like that, I do have a false water cobra, which isn't a cobra. And I'll handle that all day long. And it's technically venomous, but it's venomous like a bee is venomous. It would have to bite on me and chew on me for quite a while to get me to swell up a little bit. And instead, you just learn their it's like if you go up to a dog, you don't walk up to a strange dog and stick your head in its kennel, and you don't walk up to a strange dog and just grab it by the scruff. Not if you're trying to do anything, but you put your hand out, you let the dog or the snake come up to you and figure out. It's the same thing. You learn how people act. It's like you do with callers on shows. You figure out, who am I dealing with?
I think what scarred me, I can't believe I'm telling you this, but have you seen the Jackass movies? Because in one of the Jackass movies, the guy took his penis and he he put a mouse costume on it, and he stuck it through a hole into a reptile enclosure. I can't defend it. I cannot defend the Jackass movies. Like, normally I don't go for what I would call potty humor. It just doesn't resonate. For some reason, the Jackass films reduce me to tears. I'm laughing so hard. And this guy wrapped his penis in white tape, and he put a mouse eyes, ears, and a little nose on it, and he stuck it in a reptile enclosure and dangled it around until his penis was bitten by the snake. And perhaps that's part of the reason that I'm having some issues. I'm scarred emotionally.
So first of all, sometimes it's hard to get snakes to eat in captivity to begin with. Like we fed yesterday, and there were 3 snakes over in the rack off to my right that didn't eat at all. So they had a rat in with them and just left it. I had to go back and pick it up and throw it away. I don't know why a mouse costume doesn't smell like a mouse. So it has to just be heat. And a lot of the snakes have, the ability to sense heat, but it's like, I want to know what kind of snake it was, because there are some snakes that if you wrapped your penis in, did you say it was tape or something?
It looked like it was, that white medical tape. It looks like it was wrapped all the way up, and then it was a deck.
They put the bandage on beforehand because they knew what was going to happen. But almost every snake in my collection, if you were to wrap your finger in gauze bandage, only 3 of them would cause you any kind of harm, and it's because they're big snakes with a really big bite force. And I've got an 8-foot Brettles python named Void that is fairly new to us, and it's huge and overweight, huge too, but really sweet. But she could do some damage. One of my 2 Crebos could do some damage, but it'd be more like crushing damage because the bandage is, their bite force is big, but the teeth aren't a big deal. Most of my snakes have teeth that are curved in, and it's to keep moving the rodent and stuff into the gut because they don't have hands. You don't get to hold it or tear it. You're going to swallow it all, so you have your teeth constantly moving it back towards your stomach.
I'm going to just shake my head until that image goes away. Uh, Matt Dillahunty, any final thoughts before we wrap it up? I know we mentioned the holidays. I know we're talking about Trumpistan. We're talking about the culture at large. We're talking debates. Anything else that's been on your radar that you want to sort of mention before we wrap it up?
Well, I mean, I'm nervous. And there was a period of time, I remember Andrew Seidel and I were sitting around a couple years ago. And it was the first time the words Civil War were said on any program that I did as a seemingly not unrealistic possibility about where the world might be heading. And as we started talking about it, I remember the moment vividly. And I was like, oh, Andrew, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. Because he's one of the people that I trust the most in their analysis. And he's been more right. When other people would say similar things and I thought they were exaggerating and reaching about what was going to happen with the Supreme Court and what was going to happen with Project 2025 and what was likely going to happen, he's been right. And I remember when he said that, my heart sank because I was like, he's right so often. Please don't let him be right about this. And yet the president of peace, who has supposedly stopped 8 or 9 wars that we can't find hide nor hair of, hasn't fixed Gaza, despite claims and attempts to the contrary, hasn't fixed Ukraine, and is breaking the country that I live in to the point where Americans are more divided than ever. New York City just elected a socialist Muslim 34-year-old, I think, as its mayor. The mayor of the most complicated city to be mayor of, probably in the world. The mayor of New York City has a bigger budget, more people under his management than the governors of many states do. I don't have the numbers. I'm pulling that right out of my head just as a guess. That's the world we're living in. And it makes me both optimistic and terrified because Trump's cabinet includes Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's also a Muslim. Nobody seems to care about that, yet they're panicking about Mamdani. Then you have Mehdi Hassan. Those are my 2 favorite Muslims on the planet. How weird that the atheist debater has favorite Muslims and tends to agree with these 2 Muslims on all kinds of stuff, while absolutely not agreeing with other Muslims, like Daniel Hikikichi, who I've debated, who thinks it's okay to sexually assault toddlers if they have precocious puberty. And I think the perspective that gives me is that we are constantly, seemingly, teetering on the verge of societal collapse. And yet the capacity for some human beings to rise above, to see past differences, to focus on the goals and the ideas that can benefit all of us, seems indefatigable. But it's wild to me that you can be in this despondent place and, oh, we're looking to move. And are we looking to move out of the state? Are we looking to move out of the country? And how's this going to happen? What's going on here? And will we even have this right? Will we have that right? And everything can just be, Rah! And then there are brief flickers that hope isn't gone and that sanity might eventually win out. So I'm not ready to give up yet, but I have been closer in the last year to giving up on virtually everything than ever in my entire life. And that is terrifying. And the only thing that keeps me going is the fact that it hasn't beaten me down yet, and that there are other people in the exact same boat expressing the exact same feelings and not ready to give up either. And so how can I, with 23 buckets of privilege, give up now and not use that to try to help the people who don't have as much?
A lot of people, I think, are lined up there, and they fight alongside you, man. How do people find you and your work before we let you go?
Oh, I'm on YouTube. You can look up Matt Dillahunty on YouTube, Sans Deity, and also the Line Network. That's bulk of it. Patreon.com. I think it's /Matt Dillahunty. How do I forget my own Patreon thing?
Fundraising must be a joy at your place because all the money may or may not go to your channel.
I am terrible at, I'm fine raising money for others. So it's patreon.com/atheist debates. There we go. I am great at raising money for other people. As a matter of fact, I have a tattoo on my leg of one of your drawings. And in a couple of weeks, probably after the first of the year, I'm going to be getting another tattoo of another drawing. This is one that Adeline did for the Secular Student Alliance fundraiser. And let me just say, it's going to beat yours out because it's a biblically accurate Zerba with lots of eyes. And I'm so happy about it.
I must see this when it's done. Matt, it's always good to hang. Thanks for spending 90 minutes just going through whatever subject popped up, and I'm sure our paths will cross on the line. They co-host just every couple of months or so together, so I'm sure I'll cross paths there, okay?
If you didn't play so much tennis on like Wednesdays, you could come do a hang-up with me sometime.
Just have your people call my people. If I'm free, I'll be there. We'll catch you later, brother.
Well, enjoy your holidays. Thanks for having me on.